morning. How are you doing today? Some of you who have been watching the show might be looking at the set and say, where is the darkness? We're doing something a little bit different today. We won't be reviewing any science fiction thrillers, horrors, nothing like that. We're actually going to be talking about a very important book that I stumbled upon by a very good author. Stumbled upon on Facebook Meta. And this is an important book because it's a very critical topic in our time. So the book is called Diabetty and the Mountain Peak Checkup. And I have it on Kindle. And hopefully it shows up good. Camera lighting, all that good stuff. And this book is a children's book for young readers. And little backstory about where I'm coming from with this particular book and why this isn't a show about horror novels or anything like that is I worked in the fitness industry for 26 years, and the last 2 years working in it, when I decided to become a published author, which is something I've been working towards for a long time. The fitness industry was failing health and fitness, in my opinion. And not to make this a book about the fitness industry, health and fitness, and my experience in it, but it's important to note that there are some troubling things happening in the field of health and wellness associated with fitness. And one of those things has very much to do with diabetes. I'm not going to go into a whole lot about like my own personal background, working with individuals, helping them and all that, because that chapter of my life has definitely turned. But this was a very important book because it was engineered to help younger individuals diagnosed with diabetes cope with the disease, because it's a very debilitating disease. There were some stats in here. The very first part of the book I want to go ahead and read. It says roughly 1.45 million Americans are living with type 1 diabetes. About 304,000 children and adolescents in the U.S. have been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. Usage of CGMs like Diabetes Monitor, which is a very important key role in the story, has skyrocketed. In some clinical groups, over 80% or 90% of children with type 1 diabetes now use this technology to stay safe while playing. What it is I'll tell you a little bit about the background of diabetes, how it works, and what this story is engineered to do. So diabetes is an autoimmune disease. There are two types of it. Autoimmune is when the body attacks itself, and more specifically attacks a very targeted area of either cells, organs, what have you. Diabetes attacks the pancreas. The pancreas is an organ about this big, and it creates the vast majority of your fast-acting hormones related to nutrition, food intake, so on and so forth. And what diabetes is type 1 individual with type 1 diabetes, the pancreas does not produce something called insulin. Without insulin, your body cannot absorb the sugar or the carbohydrates that you eat. If this happens, or when this happens, the onset of type 1 diabetes, it's typically a very dramatic event. Person first feel ill, they might lose consciousness, they are very foggy, they go to the hospital, they find out they're type 1 diabetic. They have to inject insulin regularly, otherwise they will die within 3 days. Very serious disease. Type 1 diabetes is also known as adolescent onset diabetes, meaning it typically only happens, as far as the onset goes, up until, say, age 14, 15, somewhere around there. It varies kind of wildly. There are some adults that are diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, but it's mostly adolescent onset. Type 2 diabetes is when the pancreas produces insulin, but that insulin is not very effective. And so blood sugar levels raise pretty dramatically with type 2, some more so than others, depending on the severity and the resistance to a person's insulin, because the body does develop insulin resistance as part of type 2 diabetes and just being insulin resistant, which is another version of the disease. So what happens long term? It's very painful to say, but diabetes is a type of chronic disease that has a very profound effect on mortality. What that means is type 1 diabetic is very hard on the body. The kidneys, the heart, the liver, keeping everything in balance is challenging. And profound mortality effects, what that means is diabetes attacks a person's lifespan. And it's not really talked about because diabetes has become so prevalent, and people, I don't want to say want to downplay the severity of the disease, but it's very easy to downplay it. And the reality is it attacks a person their entire life, and it has a heavy toll. And with that being said, adolescents, especially young people, they can feel very injured by knowing that they have diabetes. It can affect them very gravely, and they have trouble kind of accepting it. And one of the difficulties with the diabetes is monitoring blood sugar levels. And so there are devices that young people can use where it monitors it regularly and sends notification as far as what's going on with blood sugar levels. So oftentimes the standpoint for a young person is it's very easy for them to feel like something's very, very wrong with them, or that they might be very different or limited in doing things. That can be troubling because young people like to do sports. They like to be active. There's things like that that maybe they feel like they can't do. They wish they could do. And this book is engineered towards helping kids understand that it is just something that they can work with and still, overcome challenges, difficulties, so on and so forth. So normally I would read from a book, which I would love to with this particular one, but it's a short read because it has a very profound impact and he wants to get to it. And I don't want to rob the author of that time as far as, the narrative of the book, because it is short, but it is really awesome because it really does something that has not been addressed probably since I've worked in the fitness industry, which was very notable for me. So illustrations, all that good stuff. And Diabetty wants to compete in a race, but she has diabetes. The little Jeep is Diabetty, of course. And she don't feel so good. And the story progresses on what she does, how she overcomes. Really good story. One thing I like most about it is it incorporated not a lot of characters, but enough characters so that kind of helps, maybe helps children realize that there's a support group. There's people they can reach out to. There's people that can, quite frankly, make them feel better about their plight because it's a difficult thing. Diabetes is a serious disease. As a matter of fact, it's probably one of the more, other than like heart disease, it's probably one of the more proliferating ones of our time. And it's very challenging with young people because adolescent onset or type 1 diabetes, which is what the book is based upon, the numbers are probably not going to change for that because that's largely hereditary. They get slightly worse just because, we have a larger population, I would surmise. I'm not a doctor, not a statistician, but that would be my guess. Type 2 diabetes, on the other hand, is kind of exploding. And the range, the way it's exploding is not with older individuals, whereas, normally somebody would be diagnosed with type 1 or type 2 diabetes, rather, age 60, 65. The diagnosis for type 2 diabetes and pre-diabetes, which essentially is type 2, the early onset of type 2, it's happening at significantly younger ages. 40, 30, 20, probably teens. I would say diabetes is one of the more undiagnosed chronic illnesses of our time. And it's troubling because it's a dangerous disease. So it can cause a lot of issues. So I did not actually say the author's name, Raelyn Vance. I commend you for this book, 5 stars, because it addresses something that is very important, very critical, and very challenging, especially for young people. I think the direction of this book, highly recommend everyone read it, check it out, get a copy. It's a very helpful directive. It's a very helpful direction. I thought it was awesome. And illustrations are just great. Let me go ahead and jump to another one. Let's see. This one character, probably my favorite. Mechanic Mike. Simple, right? Very good. Yeah, the illustrations, the whole thing works really, really well. So this today was a little bit of a departure from my normal stuff, but definitely got the book because it was good. And just kind of wanted to share a little bit about my concern with diabetes, what this book can do for it, just overall benefits, and helping out the young people because it's a tough one. It's a tough one. I've had several friends that have been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes in their early onset adolescence, and it affected them greatly. So thank you for joining me. If you made it this far,